word is kenti. It not only means south, it means the first. It means origin. It means foremost. And the Egyptians, as Diop showed, the Egyptians called themselves Kemiu, the black people, Kemet, the black land. And they saw anything that was divine, whatever your range of color, because the black, the original black, the unmixed black ranges in colors, whatever the color of the black, when it was made, when the man or woman was made into god or goddess, it had to be absolutely black, because black was the color of divinity. Now, why would the Egyptians get so involved with that if there were white people or there were Asiatic types or Semitic types? Diop showed a range of other things. He showed that the crania, the skulls that had been examined by William McIver's Oxford team, by Falkenberger, they said that only 36% of the ancient Egyptians were Negroid. By Negroid, they mean you cannot be called Negroid unless you have a very large flat nose, very full lips, high cheekbones. Now, that was the classical Negroid type. But there are many variations from that type, even without intermixture. Even without intermixture, you have different types of Africans. But they said that if you found anything but that type, it had to be a brown Mediterranean. In other words, they were trying to show that they had to be intermixed with Europeans in order to create civilization. Diop showed, and Kugler showed, and others showed that when you, Chatterjee and Kumar showed that when you go to the skulls in the graveyard of Africa, south of Egypt, and even in Central Africa, and you compared it with the skulls in the early dynastic period of Egypt when the pyramids were built, and you compare it with the skulls in the Middle Kingdom, and you compare it with skulls even later, you are finding the African type. So whether it was blood, or whether it was skin color, or whether it was shape of skull, you're still dealing with the African. And then to crown it all, this was the missing link. Bruce Williams and Keith Seal discovered in 1962 a pharaonic dynasty known as Tarseti on the edge of the Sudan at a place called Kustul, Q-U-S-T-U-L. This is a very important find. It's the most important find that has been made in the field of African civilizations. It's the most important find that has been made over the last 300 years. The discovery that the pharaohs did not begin in Egypt, that the pharaohs began in Nubia. They found 12 black pharaohs reigning at Tarseti even before the first pharaoh appeared in the first dynasty of Egypt. Aha or Scorpion or Narma-Minis, they found pharaohs in the Sudan. And above all, and this is very important to find at Tarseti, they discovered that the blacks on the edge of the Sudan were already using the hieroglyphs. The world's most important writing system, the hieroglyphs, were already being used by the blacks of Tarseti at least 2 centuries before they took it up into Egypt. I have shown other things. In my book, They Came Before Columbus, I pointed to the fact that when the Sahara began to dry up, one of the great cataclysms of the world, which brought the lakes in Africa in some places 100 feet lower, the Africans began to retreat from the Saharan world, which was once a lush world. We have found pictures of Africans in chariots thousands of years ago. Long before Europe had a civilization, hunting in chariots. It's drawn on the Saharan wall. The Sahara suffered a cataclysm. The Africans began to retreat. And I pointed out, as only a few people in the world pointed out, that on the basis of the linguistic evidence, on the basis of the spread of linguistic networks, on the basis of the movement of scripts, on the basis of the skeletons that were found along that line, moving away from the Sahara as it dried up, that they were moving along shrinking floodplains and they must have been following rivers. And those rivers were connected to tributaries of the Nile Valley. 3.5 years ago, the space agency tested my theory. They sent down microwave beams 16 feet below the African earth, and there they found the very rivers I was talking about, where I said they would be. They found the ancient riverbeds running underneath the Sahara, beneath the earth. It could not be seen on the ground, it was seen from outer space. They saw the riverbeds running, linking up with the tributaries of the Nile Valley, thereby establishing an ancient connection between inner Africa and Egypt. Colin Wilson, the anthropologist, even found that the Ik in Uganda were speaking Middle Egyptian. And as I pointed out, in the agricultural system of the Sudan lay the roots of Egyptian agriculture. The tamarind fruit, cultivated cotton, Gossypium herbaceum, the bottle gourd, Laganaria caesarearia, the oil palm fruit, the watermelon, all of these things were found in Egypt. If other people were making Egypt, where are their plants? The whole thing was absurd. Whether you dealt with skin, color, or whether you dealt with culture, or whether you dealt with language, you found the African. And the most extraordinary evidence of the schizophrenia, the blindness that has entered the world, came when Professor Jean Vercouter, an excellent anthropologist, jumped up and said, okay, it is true that the language is African, the writing is African, the culture is African, the techno-complex or technology, as Sav Soderbergh had pointed out, is African. The point is that we still don't know how many of them were real Africans. Now, if we had done that with Europeans, they would go crazy. But we wouldn't be able to say that. We would just be dismissed. Because they have that power over the media, they can make absurd statements like that. And everybody got angry. Why are you bringing up blackness? What does blackness have to do with this serious subject of history? It doesn't matter whether they were black, white, or blue. We are dealing with history. All along, all the history books, even today, are crowded with these non-black types, mixed with Hamites and Semites, and all sorts of people. But as soon as you try to establish, no, you're dealing with the real African here. Why are you talking about race? Why are you bringing race into it? You know the Journal of African, now, I edit the Journal of African Civilization, but there's a journal, international journal, called Journal of African History. It wrote an article lately saying that Van Sertima is a racist. Why am I a racist? Because I am trying to show that the black African played a major role in civilization. Why I'm so concerned about the black African? Well, we are concerned not because we are racist, but because we are fighting racism. We are concerned. We are concerned because we are not judged fairly in terms of individual merit. We have not yet entered the world that just. We are judged on our phenotypes, how large the nose, how black the skin, etc. This type of man has contributed nothing to civilization. Nobody says it so nakedly anymore. Occasionally you get some angry fool who will say it outright. But it's still thought inside. We're still the people who are supposed to be superior physically, but inferior intellectually. There are big debates about that now, very recent. So do not think for one moment that we are going to forget it, because we didn't bring it up. It is foisted upon us. We have no way. We have no choice. I went and I was invited not only to speak to the great audience, I had to speak to a special audience of executives in Dallas who wanted to know what this fuss was about. And I pointed out